Welcome back. Okwemi Oguntade, a senior economic research analyst with financial derivatives, joins me now on the program as we talk about the commodities market. Good morning to you, Okwemi. It's great to have you on the show.
Good morning, Harriet.
So, what is actually driving domestic agri prices at the moment? Because taking a look at today's report as sent in by you folks at FGC, we see rice now at 16,600.
Yeah, for rice, we've seen that prices have come down. It was 18,000, and now it's at 16,600. And the major reason is because we've seen an increase in local production of rice for one, and then it has also met a resistance level, so to speak. That means it could only go so high before you reach some form of consumer resistance. So we're seeing prices tapering down for rice and beans, which are kind of like substitutes. So it's only fair that they move in the same direction.
But then for the other commodities, it just seems as if they've played to, they're not moving, they're kind of static. One would have expected that even though we don't need FX to import most of the other commodities like palm oil, for instance, semolina, maize and the rest of it, but we're still seeing those prices, at static.
Well, yes, for palm oil, prices are pretty much still static because there's been some form of restriction on importation of palm oil because, it was one of the items included in the 41 items restricted for Forex. So most traders have had to rely on domestic production, and for that reason, we're seeing that, it's not enough to meet domestic consumption. So palm oil prices have remained relatively high at about 25,000 naira for 25 liters. Then for semolina and the likes, we are aware that you use wheat to make this product. So obviously you're going to have to import wheat, and wheat is it's dependent on you have to convert it to flour and all that, and we know wheat is obviously affected by forex issues as well, although in recent times we've seen that the foreign exchange rate has appreciated, but then there's this lag period between when you're able to sell out your inventory and reproduce at lower cost compared to when foreign exchange rates were high.
And then of course one of the burning issues that you talked about here in your report is that the CBN has revalued the naira to 360 naira to $1 for invisibles, and then you just mentioned it already, the spread between the parallel and official market. So let's say better days ahead for the domestic commodities, especially as we count down to the next time when the National Bureau of Statistics will be releasing inflation numbers. So maybe we'll see a reduction in food inflation numbers.
Well, it's given the exchange rate appreciation, there's a lot of false expectations there that, we would expect prices to reduce significantly.
Why false expectations?
Because if you consider other, factors that play into the prices of commodities, like I mentioned the last time, we're in the planting season, and it's normal or it's usual to have inflationary pressures on food items during this season because it's the planting season. And then also looking at the CBN's policy, there's always been a question amongst many analysts about how sustainable this policy is, if it's going to be, putting it into context. Okay, let's say it's sustainable for maybe about 7 months because our import cover are close to 7 months as at this period. But then there are also other factors that play into the external reserves, such as the price of oil, which we're seeing at $50.97 per barrel, and we know that the U.S. shale producers are still resilient. As at last week Friday, active rig counts increased by 21 rigs, and on the right side, the OPEC producers are talking about extending the output curve, although they weren't able to make a decision, but they said they would meet in mid-April, to decide if they would extend the period for the output curve for an additional 6 months. Then you also have to think about Nigeria. Initially, Nigeria was exempted from this output curve because we're having issues in the Niger Delta region. And now that our productions have recovered to, not fully, but we've recovered to about 1.6 million barrels. I'm sure OPEC members will be looking to draft Nigeria in now, since production has recovered, but it's not obviously up to the 2.2 million barrels target.
No, but we're getting there.
But it's a possibility that we might be drafted into this new deal. And if we are drafted into that, we know Nigeria is more sensitive to production levels than price levels anyway, so that might also affect our external reserves. So there's a lot of factors going in there to see if this would actually be sustainable, because at the end of the day, oil is still our major source of forex earnings.
And of course, taking a look at the global prices for some of these other agri-commodities, like wheat, for instance, you actually mentioned it, but we've seen wheat futures down about 0.47% to $4.23 a bushel.
Yes, for wheat futures, what we're seeing in the market right now is there's been a lot of data out there from the U.S. Department of Agriculture on production estimates, and this is kind of weighing down on futures because there's a lot of production coming in from the U.S., from Russia, and it's kind of, it's a surplus outweighing demand in the market. So we're seeing that prices of wheat futures are trading downwards.
Okay, so what's your outlook for the rest of the week?
For the rest of the week, for domestic commodities, I expect prices to remain relatively static because it's not that volatile in that market. But looking at oil prices, we're looking to see what the inventory data from the US would be tomorrow, which will be released by the EIA. And if there's an increase, that would obviously lead to oil prices declining. Although it might probably fall below $50. What I hope is that it remains at 50, so we don't see a downward spiral, so to speak. And then if we're looking at cocoa and sugar prices, they'll probably remain static. Right now we're looking at production levels in West Africa, and we're also looking at demand for these items as the summer season approaches, because a lot of industry players are trying to buy in bulk ahead of the summer season.
Okpeyemi, thank you so much for coming on the program today and speaking to us and giving us latest on domestic agri and, of course, how the global factors affect us as well.